Hello students, how are you? Welcome to your today's video lecture. That is the third part according to your NCERT book, and from your reference book it is chapter 9, that is excess demand and deficit demand. Excess demand and deficit demand, this is very easy topic. Excess demand occurs when there is aggregate demand is greater than aggregate supply, and this is the definition. Excess demand refers to the situation when aggregate demand is more than aggregate supply, corresponding to the full employment level of the output in the economy. This is the diagram. In this diagram, this is your aggregate supply curve. This is your AD curve, which is C plus I. Now you are seeing that this AD curve is shifted upward. This AD curve is shifted upward to AD1 dash. That is your shift in AD curve due to the increase in investment expenditure. So what is the main effect? Excess demand gives rise to inflationary gap. This gap from this point to this point, E to F point, it is called your inflationary gap. That is your excess demand, and at your excess demand your AD curve is greater than AS, and it is the point below equilibrium level. Now inflationary gap refers to the gap by which actual AD is greater than planned aggregate to establish the full employment equilibrium. The main effect of this inflationary gap, it leads to rise in the prices of general price levels in the economy. Now bacha, this is the shift and this is the point E and F. The gap is your in excess demand. Now here is the explanation of your diagram. In the above diagram, AD and AS are the planned aggregate demand and planned aggregate supply curves. E is the full employment equilibrium level where your AD is equal to AS. But due to an increase in investment, your AD curve is shifted parallel to AD dash. That this your AD curve is shifted to AD dash curve, and when we will compare the 2 points at this equilibrium point, here is E and here is F. So this gap is called your inflationary gap. So the gap of EF is termed as inflationary gap. There are some reasons behind why this excess demand occurs. That is your increase in MPC, decrease in your taxes, increase in your government expenditure, increase in investment, decrease in imports, increase in your exports, and then it is your deficit financing. Here is your impact of excess demand. That is, what are the effects of this excess demand on the economy? It does not have any effect on output. Why? Because already we are at full employment level. It does not have any effect on employment. Why? Because there is no involuntary unemployment which is existing. All people are employed who all are willing to work. The main effect is that it is resulting in increase in general price level. So that is called inflation, and we have to fight against this inflationary gap through fiscal and monetary policies, which we will discuss later in the video. Now the second page, it is just reciprocal of your excess demand, that is your deficit demand. Here is the definition. Deficit demand refers to a situation when aggregate demand is less than the aggregate supply, corresponding to the full employment level of output in the economy. Now first have a look at this diagram. This is your AS curve. In this AD, this is your initial AD curve, and due to the decrease in investment expenditure, your AD curve has shifted to downward to this your AD dash, where it is your C plus I minus delta I, because there is decrease in investment. The gap from point E to G is your deflationary gap. This is your deflationary gap, and this shows the situation of your deficit demand. As in at this point G, you can see that your aggregate demand is less than your aggregate supply. So it is your full employment equilibrium level. Now just see some definitions. Deficit demand gives rise to deflationary gap, and deflationary gap is the gap by which actual demand falls shortage of aggregate demand required to the established full employment level. It leads to fall in general price levels, and it leads to decrease in planned output and involuntary unemployment. Here is the explanation of your diagram. In the above diagram, AD and AS are planned aggregate demand and planned aggregate supply curves. E is the level of full employment where AD is equal to AS, and due to decrease in investment expenditure, AD curve shifts parallelly downward to AD1. As I have told, it will shift downward, and this gap EG, this gap is your termed as deflationary gap. Here are the some regions of your deficit demand. That is, it leads to decrease in MPC, increase in taxes, decrease in government expenditure, decrease in fall in investment, increase in imports, and decrease in exports. It also has some impacts are there on the economy, that it leads to fall in planned output level, as because we will go to under this point shows your underemployment level, and then it will show some involuntary unemployment also, and this will lead to decrease in general price levels. These effects are written here also. This is a note point that during deficit demand equilibrium is determined at a level less than the full employment, and it leads to the situation of involuntary unemployment. It leads to the situation of involuntary unemployment. Let's see back again once, that it is your actual AD, it is your planned AD, and then as much as this gap will be, your inflationary pressure will be more, and here you see, as this gap will be larger, you will have large deflationary gaps. So it should be not there. If it is, it should be very minimum, because if it is minimum, it will be very easy for us to correct this. And now you have to look a basic difference between your aggregate demand, excess demand, and your deficit demand. Here is the difference between, and it refers to the situation when your AD is greater than AS. It refers to the situation when your AD is less than AS. It leads to inflationary gap, it leads to deflationary gap, and it indicates over full employment equilibrium, and it indicates under full employment equilibrium. It leads to, because of rise in consumption and investment expenditure and etc. It is because of fall in consumption and investment etc. And then it does not have any effect on output and employment. It has effect like it leads to fall in output, then fall in employment level, and shortage of demand is also there. Impact on prices, it leads to increase in prices, that is inflation. It leads to decrease in prices, that is deflation. Now these two things, inflation and deflation, are very great things which have huge effects in our economy in real sense also. So this is a flow chart showing how to correct excess demand. Excess demand is also a situation where there is excess of money supply in the economy. So we have to control this, means our main focus should be how to reduce money supply from the people. These are two policies: fiscal policies, monetary policies. Fiscal policy is also called revenue and expenditure policy. So this is the flow chart that we can do: decrease in spending, increase in taxes. These are some instruments told here. How they affect, that is been discussed. So here you can just have a look: increase bank rate, increase repo rate, sell the securities, increase LLR. And here is your increase in margin requirements. Here is advice to discourage the lending. And this is your credit rationing. And this all is discussed here. And bacha, while discussing, I have discussed both things at the same time. So as per your question requirement, you have to focus what and which they are asking. To make video little bit short, I have done both explanation at same time only, of excess demand also and of deficit demand also. So in case of fiscal policy, I have used word change in government spending. So in change in government spending, if there is decrease in government spending, it will lead to decrease in level of AD curve, which it leads to correct inflationary gap. As your AD curve will decrease, you will go back again to the original employment level and you will get the situation. Now what will happen if you have to correct deficit demand? This whole process will reverse. That is, an increase in GS will lead to increase in your AD curve, and then your AD curve will move again back to your full employment level. Same is the case with your taxes. If you will increase your taxes, it will lead to decrease in level of aggregate expenditure. Then it will correct the situation of inflationary pressures. I have written a note here, beta. In case of deficit demand, process will be reversed. It means wherever there is a sign of decrease, it will change to increase. Wherever the sign is of increase, it will change to decrease. And wherever it is talking about inflationary, it will come deflationary process. So while making notes, you will just reverse everything and you can write in your notebook about your deficit demand also. Now here are some monetary policies. Change in bank rate can be of two types. It can increase or it can decrease. I am talking here about increase. In case of decrease, the complete process will reverse. So let's have a look what happens when we will increase. Increase in cost of borrowing of central bank. If it will increase, so for commercial bank, it will become costly to take money from the central bank. And if it becomes costly from commercial banks, it will also become costly for public. So their public will think that they will not borrow at such high rates. Due to this, there will be decrease in availability of credit in the economy. And finally, it will lead to help in correction of inflation. In case of deficit demand, the whole process will reverse. Means there will be first a decrease in bank rate, then it will lead to decrease in cost of borrowing, that it will decrease in public that they should take loans, and then it will lead to increase in credit availability, and they can finally lead to your correction of deflation. Hope you are understanding both points at same time. Then is your repo rate. Same is the process with repo rate. The both processes are same. You can just give a reading to the notes. The simple changes of this word only, repo rate. And then is your open market operations. In open market operations, to correct excess demand, you have to sell securities, and to correct deficit demand, you have to buy securities. So let's have a look what happens when we sell securities. If we sell securities, there will be reduction in reserves of commercial bank. They will have less reserves. If they will have less reserves, they will have less ability to create credit. If they will have less ability to create credit, your aggregate demand will go low. If your aggregate demand will go low, you will move back to the original full employment equilibrium, and you will get the all the measures of the inflationary pressures. Now in case of your deficit demand, this complete process will reverse. In place of sale, you will do purchase of securities, then there will be increase in reserves, and then there will be your this increase in credit ability will be there. So nicely you make the notes about this, what to be done in excess demand, what to be done in deficit demands. For excess demand I have completely explained, and for deficit demand I have written the notes. So while referring to these note points, you can make the necessary changes in the points given. Now after that, this is your page number 5, that is your LRR. This is of two things, CRR and LRR. With an increase in LRR, what will happen? Effective cash with the commercial banks will decrease. It will lead to decrease in credit availability of the people. Then it will lead to less money with the people, and if less money with the people, then your inflationary situation will be controlled. Now how you will show it in case of deficit demand? Whole process will reverse. What will happen? You will write with an decrease in LRR, there will be increase in effective resources, there will be increase in credit availability, people will have more money, and this will correct your deflationary gap. Hope you are understanding both the situations. Now there is qualitative instruments. In qualitative instruments, you will learn about three things: margin requirement, moral suasion, and selective credit controls. In chapter 6, I have told you about margin requirement. What it is? It is the difference between the amount of loan and the collateral security they are asking. So if this margin requirement will increase, banks will have less credit creating powers, because people will not be interested in the borrowings from bank at such high margins. So this will lead to decrease in your aggregate demand, and finally you will get solution for your inflationary gap. What will happen in the deficit situation? This whole process will reverse, means you have to decrease your margin requirements. When you will decrease your margin requirements, your credit availability will increase. Credit availability will increase means people will start borrowing again, and they will have greater aggregate demand curve now, and due to that new equilibrium will get, that will be at original point, that is your full employment. The next one is your moral suasion. In this, what you have to do for inflationary gap, central bank give advice to banks to not to give credit, which will lead to decrease in credit creating and decrease in AD. Decrease in AD means your inflationary situation is solved. And in case of deficit, process will be reversed. It means banks will allow the commercial banks to give loans, people will have more money, aggregate demand curve will again go back, and then you will go to the same point of equilibrium. So this is how you will be doing. The next one is your selective credit controls. It refers to a method in which central bank give direction to the people to give credit or not. During the excess demand, RBI introduces credit rationing, and during deficit demand, RBI withdraws credit rationing. Bache, as I have told you here, these where is that page? As I have told you, these page, whatever is written with blue pens without bubbles, it is for your excess demand. It is for your excess demand. and whatever is in bubbles means you have to make necessary changes in all, because all process will reverse. Your increase sign will change into decrease, and decrease will change into increase. Inflation will change into deflation. Selling of security will change into buying of securities. Permissions will lead to dispermissions. So these are the necessary opposite effects which you have to write in your deficit demand. I hope I have make you clear about how to, whatever I have written with blue pen, that is your excess demand. For your deficit demand, according to necessary changes, as I have explained you, you have to make your own notes page. Hope myself clear. And this is a flow chart now, how to correct the deficit situations. So these are that now: increase in spending, decrease in taxes, then your decrease in bank rate, decrease in repo rate, purchase of securities, increase in LR. So writing all these points and using the explanation which I have done in excess demand, just reverse all the explanation and you will get your notes for your deficit demand. If you face any problem, in comments you can write. I will provide again about deficit demand. If you are able to do, then it's well and good. And then this is your last page. These are some questions which you have to do according to the discussions made in the complete video. You will